Hello again everyone and welcome back along to the channel. Now it is post-match Crusaders versus Lions. I thought what better time, a bit of spare time on my hands to record my thoughts on the match. Of course I have just been involved with the Driving Maul and his post-match thoughts with another special guest as well over on his channel. So if you haven't checked that out, go and do that now. It's where you can see some of my thoughts, not all of them, but a little bit of a glimpse into what might be coming up in this little short, hopefully little post-match review of this game between the Crusaders and the Lions. I think what has been the most important match of the tour so far as well. By far the most important for the Lions, especially in a match where I think New Zealand public really got to see a little bit more of the Northern Hemisphere than most of us would probably like to see. Now I can imagine, like myself, most New Zealand viewers, most Southern Hemisphere viewers are probably not too bothered about the result. I think really expectation is when the Lions come that they will beat every domestic side going into the test matches, but I think the style of this match is what most people from the Southern Hemisphere will be screwing their face up about. A match controlled completely by what I think was a bit of a nut job of a referee. That's my first real point about this match. Before we talk about the teams, I wanted to talk about the ref. Now this is not something I really enjoy, is really pinning a lot of controversy on the referee, but I thought he was very, very poor for a referee. A number of clear-cut decisions that he didn't really see or didn't really get the whole concept of the match in a lot of places, really had little idea with the scrum, and since the Lions had a little bit of dominance early on, pretty much just kept flow with that the whole way through, despite the fact that the Crusaders actually after about half an hour understood what the hell he was refereeing about and pretty much turned that around back the other way. That was one area. Offsides was another area that, yes, you could compete and say that the Lions are very, very fast off the line, but another argument to that is you push the rules, you see how far you can go, and then you adapt to what the referee will allow you to do. I think that's where the Lions definitely won this match. The score in the end was 12-3 to the Lions, their first win over the Super Rugby franchises, and surprisingly they lost to the 5th place one but beat the 1st place one. So a bit of a turnaround for the Lions there. But the referee, other than that, things he missed, I think blatantly, easily. If this was a Super Rugby game, there would have been at least 3 if not 4 yellow cards. There was tackles in the air with no arms, big shoulder charges coming in from players. One especially stood out. Not quite 100% sure who the player was, but one of the Crusaders players near the line, big high ball, completely wiped this guy out. There was one that I thought was blatant. Super Rugby game, that was instant a yellow card, get out. No questions, no qualms whatsoever. The referee didn't even see it. Another thing I thought the Lions played their advantage against referee was the way that they were playing obstructions. It was almost like a game of league. The way that they had guys running pretty much the same line side by side with each other, blocking out a lot of defenders, half the side of defence. Number of times that this was done, I think, too, and the referee completely missing that. And until later on in the match, it wasn't probably till the 60th minute that he started picking up on some of these obstructions being run by the Lions. So he missed a lot of stuff, but that's the way that Northern Hemisphere referees. I think this is where that game was ultimately decided. It was a very Northern Hemisphere match that the Lions won by 4 penalties to 1. That is not how New Zealand teams play whatsoever. And I don't like the way and the fact that a match can be decided by a referee and the way that he really controls a match. It was a very stop-start match. It was a very slow match as well. It was almost gifted into that style of 10-man rugby that we were used to seeing from England years and years ago. The referee really did determine, along with the weather, the way that that game was actually played out. But I think the referee had a shocker. And to be perfectly fair, I'm sure we've seen him referee in the Southern Hemisphere before, but that style that he brought to this game tonight was dreadful, and I would be very happy to never see him referee another Southern Hemisphere game ever. Imagine if the Wallabies are refereed by that guy. Good God. that would be a terrible matchup. But his style of refereeing did not give this game any favours. The weather did not do this game any favours, and as a result, it was probably one of the worst Crusaders games by far that we have seen this whole season. Gifted by the way that the weather, the referee, and the style of play that was given. That being said, of course, you got to give all that credit because of that to the Lions in the way that they played. Sure, the referee allowed them to be offside. Sure, the referee allowed them to get away with stuff. But I think most people would agree he definitely did side to the way of the Lions with a lot of decisions. But you make your own luck. You've got to test those boundaries before you can know how far you can push them. The Lions certainly did that a lot better than the Crusaders. They adapted to the game exceptionally well straight away. They knew what their limits were after about 5 minutes, where the Crusaders took pretty much the whole first half. Even though they turned things around, they were already too far behind the 8 ball. The weather is the other thing that really controlled this matchup as well. There's a lot of plays that a normal Crusaders team would have put away on a normal night. They couldn't do it tonight. So defense was massive. Both sides, amazing defenses, as you know, no tries. So defense was absolutely on point for both teams. So we'll talk about the home team a little bit, the Crusaders. I don't have too much to say about the way they played. I think they didn't adapt, they didn't adjust, they didn't allow themselves to play the style that they wanted, because they become a bit too predictable in the way that they were trying to catch up with the game, with the way it was played, with the way it was refereed. Cost them too much from the start. They got found out, and they, surprisingly to me, with Robinson as their coach, didn't really have that second plan until very, very, very late on in the game. And again, to their credit, they were still in the match very, very late on as well. I think the scrum battle was definitely one of the fiercest of the tour so far. I think the Lions had it by far at the start, but it certainly did twist right round and go back to the Crusaders once they figured out how the referee was ruling it, because something they just weren't used to at all, and something that the players that are going to be in the All Blacks will learn immensely from as well, because that is where they learn how the Lions will play and how the referees will sort things out as well. I think for the Crusaders, David Havili was utterly wasted playing at 12. I understand Dag was in the side, but they do have to think about who they had on the wing. That's right, it was Seta Tamani Valu. Where did he play for the All Blacks last year? In the centres. I would have much preferred to have seen Tamani Valu in at 12, put Dag on the wing, and keep Havili at fullback. Cover those two back and forth. You got two fullbacks that can take high balls. You got Havili wasted out there in the middle of the park, where he was a non-event. He was nowhere at all, where you've got Tamani Valu, who's done it. He's naturally a centre, he's naturally a midfielder, and he knows the style of play. I think that was a bit of a tactical error from the Crusaders in that game, and they got found out pretty badly. Where Dag played as well as he did, he was a bit of a lone ranger back there, and he could have done with some real good help if they had Havili, who's been amazing all season. He could have been playing in that natural position for him, and it would have, I think, increased them a bit. Good from the Crusaders, though. A lot of young guys learning this international level, learning international referees, international conditions, international tactics. Guys like George Bridge on another day would have scored 3 tries all by himself. Today, he butchered every single chance he had. Mwanga was pretty decent as well, and I thought Jack Goodhue, one man who was exceptional against the Lions here tonight. The game built on, he got better and better. I think the players will be disappointed about how they played, would definitely be those experienced guys in the Crusaders pack who they were depending on very, very much. They were thrown off guard by the way that the game was played and reffed, and it took them a long time to adjust. Their kind of involvement in controlling the team was lost. It was left to these younger guys who weren't used to having to deal with that, because they were used to having experience and that leadership from above who deal with things and they follow through. They had to concentrate in other areas here tonight, and I think that made a big difference to how the Crusaders played in the game. But ultimately, defence, very, very good from both sides. And you could say the Crusaders on easily another day, not so dewy. If they had better support for Israel Dag at the back, who was getting bombarded with kicks, they needed to sort that out a bit better. Bridge was a little bit off on a standard game, but this was a big occasion, and these guys are definitely the future of New Zealand rugby. I think it was quite a bright match, really, on the overall aspect of the game for the Crusaders. And like we talked about before, these games, when we're looking at Super Rugby, I don't think it's going to affect the Crusaders whatsoever, because this is just a small loss. It's just a small loss to really a massive joining of 4 big rugby nations. I mean, look at what they're up against here. And to have these young guys coming out and being the favourites to win this match, getting a referee from France, rainy conditions, terrible running rugby conditions, they played pretty well. They were not too overawed. I think they adapted in time, but they were always chasing the game, which is a bit of a problem. And the Crusaders, they just weren't at that level this week, and it's a shame because I think it's one of the worst games they've played, but I can understand why it took so long and why it didn't really go the way that they thought they wanted it to, especially when they were given a few curveballs to start the match off. With that being said, though, we'll look to the Lions, and this is where a lot of the commending has to come into it, because the Lions, they knew exactly where to push this game. They knew exactly what the style was going to be. They knew, bang, this is how he's going to ref it, that's how we're going to play. This is where he's going to rule on this, we can get away with that. International refs seem to be a bit more lenient than Super Rugby referees. Like I said, with the Driving Maul, I think there was 3 occasions that a yellow card could have easily been dished out. Tipping tackles, dishing players out of the ruck by flipping them over. That sort of stuff is clamped on really quickly in Super Rugby. Neck rolls is another one. A couple occasions of players getting neck rolled over the sideline, close to rucks near the sideline. I mean, things like that get clamped on pretty quick. And if anything, I thought this ref was a bit slack on many occasions on things like that. The tackles, of course, we already talked about as well. But the Lions, they adapted instantly to every single piece of this game. Where they won it, I think there's only one man that you can really describe to win this match. His name was Conor Murray. Controlled it, kicked sensationally. Now, the All Blacks know what Conor Murray can do, but in these weather conditions, he was massive. His kicks, although good, as we always know, he is a great box kicker, quick and accurate, but the weather conditions played perfectly to his game. The Crusaders could not match that. The box kicking of Bryn Hall and Mitchell Drummond, non-existent. It was all going through Richie Mo'unga, who was kicking it down people's throat. Israel Dagg tried it. He's got a huge punt, we know, but he was kicking it down people's throat. Aaron Smith could be a totally different concept for the Lions to put together. I don't think we're going to see Conor Murray versus the Highlanders. That would give too much away for the Lions. They need to keep Murray now just fit. Play him against the Māori, I'd suggest. He will play against them, but probably not against the Highlanders, because they don't want that matchup to happen, because they don't want to get too far ahead of the All Blacks learning exactly where the advantages will be given to Murray over that matchup. But he was huge. Toby Faletau, Conor Murray, and Owen Farrell. That 8, 9, 10 for the first part until, of course, the injury to Jonathan Davis. That was big. Farrell moved out into the midfield. Sexton come on, but I still think Conor Murray is such a massive link to the forward pack, to the backs. He is so important. He just about went down with an injury trying to ankle tap Goodhue on a break. That could have changed the whole tour if he did something to his hand, because I think he is the massive linchpin in this Lions team. They dominated line out. I think that's an area where they need to really attack the All Blacks. It's been shown and proven the line out is an area that they can definitely dominate. I don't think they did it to the scrum at all. I think the scrum is something that will be pretty evenly battled. I did notice, though, midway first half, the Lions did tend to get a little bit rattled over things. When things start to get a bit aggressive, things start to get a bit testy, the Lions were definitely on the back foot on that occasion and started to throw a few handbags, especially when the Crusaders demolished their scrum midway, late way through the first half. That changed the game for the Lions, and it went from playing game rugby and you know, just doing the usuals, it went to personal matters, and things start to get a bit out of control. That's where you need a good leader. Ellerman Jones, Will he even play in the first test team? It's highly doubtful. But I think if it was him, or whether it's just they controlled themselves, they did get it under control in the second half. Maybe Gatlin had something to do with that as well. But they did start to show a little bit of lack of composure there, which could be something that the All Blacks, who can be, you know, a sort of side that can get a bit niggly and get a bit under skin, could look to attack later on as well. The thing with the Lions, though, that I think really is going to be their weakness is they have no attack. They have very, 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 very limited attacking options. They just go sideways. Even when their big back rowers go forward, Mako Vunipola played pretty well, but still, he made the gain line. That's good for them, but they just can't follow that up, and then they go sideways, side to side. No one's making inroads. It's a bit of a problem. Then they have to revert to the kick, or they make a mistake. They get to the try line. They never really look like scoring a try. Massive overlaps out wide. The Crusaders could still cover it. They've got problems in attack, but like has been said, you can win a game with defence. That's got to be an area where the Lions have to make sure they keep their defensive abilities up, but they need to work on attack. Coming up against the All Blacks, if it's a dry night, if they get rain and dew like this, they did tonight against the Crusaders, they could be in for chance, but if they get the nice sunny conditions, I just can't see them getting anywhere near scoring enough points from kicks to match a team scoring tries, which I thought the Crusaders would do. And like I said earlier, if it wasn't so wet and rainy, I thought they could have easily scored a couple of tries, especially through Goodhue and Bridge. BNT, I thought, was a real positive for the Lions. Once again, second match, second time he's impressed. He actually did, and on more occasions than anyone else, actually break the line, actually make some room through the middle of the defence, which was a good thing for the Lions. And for me, I thought he would have come as an extra, as a bit of a midweek player, but he has really stormed on, and you've got to say, he's right up there to start in that first test in the midfield as well. He's playing that well, and the question will be who partners him, because no one has really stood out for the Lions. Their back row, I think it's an area we all knew they were going to be strong in. Toby Faletau's been outstanding. He just confirmed that again tonight. The 6 and the 7, there's going to be a bit of debate about that, whether the Stander, O'Brien, Omani, who's going to fill those. Warburton, of course, a bit of a niggle. Will he even make that starting 15? There's a lot of water to still go under that bridge before they come to a decision. But I think Faletau's definitely now down as number 8. Tolji off the bench has been brilliant as well for the Lions, so it's another one that they're probably now down. Who sits in the middle? Cruz was pretty good at calling the game. Their front row was pretty good and solid as well, which is another area they need to concentrate on attack as well. But just like the Crusaders, defence was massive. Under those conditions, that rain, that slippery ball, and the referee being completely blind and stupid, there's a lot going on from that matchup. But I think the good thing that's come from this match, especially in the Blues game, is that the Lions have had to up their game. They have improved dramatically, match by match by match. But I think what's best here is that now the All Blacks coaching staff, the tacticians of the team, and the senior players for that matter, can look at this and go, yeah, we're identifying where the Lions are going to play, how they're going to attack, if you can call it that, their defensive patterns. They've had to bring out their A-game and their A-game players as well at this early stage for threat of, you know, losing to many Super Rugby sides. So that's a benefit. They're being really tested, which is good for them, but it's also good for the All Blacks to learn. Instead of first test going, wow, where did all this come from? They should now know the core of what the Lions had to offer in that area. But great matches, great start to the series as well. A lot of question marks being raised about the refereeing in this matchup. Truly one of the worst I've seen this year or in recent time as well. Completely oblivious to a lot of stuff happening in this matchup. But no excuse to the Crusaders. That is more credit to the Lions because they really pushed it as far as they could go. So terrible ref, but you got to make it to your advantage. Whether he's good, whether he's bad, whatever he lets go, you've got to take every inch you can get. Lions did that to a T, and I hope to never see that referee again. Good match though, interesting match. Not the sort of thing we're used to of Super Rugby. There was no real excitement. It was like watching the Rebels versus the Force. A lot of errors, a lot of mistakes, and a lot of penalties and a lot of kicks. I suppose the Crusaders could have easily kicked another couple of goals, but that's not the style of play. That's not the Super Rugby style of play. It was still an interesting matchup to see, but given drier conditions, things could have been a lot different. The Lions have a lot to work on. The Crusaders, their season is not done, but I think they can take a lot of positives out of what they have seen here tonight. All they need to do, though, is make sure the All Blacks win the series, and they will be trucking on from where they left off in a still fantastic season. They only lost by 9 and they didn't concede a try. They will be gutted, though, that their attack let them down on a big night against the Lions. For me, though, this doesn't change any of my thoughts about how this tour is going to go. It's still, if anything, this just reaffirms my original picks and, well, makes me want to keep them the way that they are. I did think always that they'll lose one of the Super Rugby games. I thought it'd be to the Crusaders, end up being to the Blues, but I still think this is, if anything, just giving the All Blacks a bit more information to work with, a bit more knowledge about how the Lions play, forced their hand a little bit more into their test match sort of tactics, which could be good for the All Blacks, and the outrun here for the Lions to get a bit of test match atmosphere will be good for them too. So still not too concerned, didn't learn too much extra than what we already knew, so I'm not too worried that things are going to change too much. I think the All Blacks will still match it in the forward pack like we've seen here today. I think all in all we're just going to be a bit more knowledgeable about how things play out, and we need to be a bit more clever about how to play in the rain and how to adapt to things changing. So I'm still happy, I'm still pretty much on track with what I think is going to happen in the actual test match series. Good one for learning. 12-3 the final score. That's just a few little thoughts I noted down during the matchup. Again, if you want to see other thoughts from some men from the north, you can tune into the Driving Maul little post-match little video he made up just an hour or so ago. So go check that out and see what you think about that as well. But until next time, thanks for watching this little post-match review of the game. I'll be back again with plenty more Lions content. But until then, thanks for tuning in and take care.